Hello, and welcome to another episode of What Sayeth the Crooked Nose. I'll be speaking with Joyce, another elite mentorship trainer, and I expect that you'll probably just see, two people who really enjoy what they've learned, what they can contribute, what they can give, and ultimately, I hope that what you see is just a great way to embark on a journey, right? Maybe in your own life. Maybe there's an area where you'd like to get a little bit more clarity, and just seeing people who have gone through different training to do just that, right? Figure out, hey, who am I? What do I want to do with my life? Who do I want to be? Right? What is my legacy? I think that you'll find a lot of great nuggets in the conversation, and we'll just kind of see where it goes. And hope you join me. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Joyce. I really appreciate you making it. I was mentioning offline just how beautiful your home looks just from this little view. And again, thanks so much for joining me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to it as well.
So you mentioned that you live in a log house and a little bit
Mhm.
off the grid. Tell me a little bit about that. How did that journey get you there?
We've always been a little bit unhappy with just regular style of living and all the abuse that goes on with electricity and we wanted to leave that behind us as well as reduce our bills a little bit and take the stress off for having to bring in lots of money. So about 12 years ago, we built this house on a 35-acre farm. And it was my husband's farm he was an apple grower before, and it used to be an orchard. And we have lived off the grid since. So um, there is no electricity at our house, which is a challenge sometimes with laptops and phones and all that stuff. I have a couple of solar panels that charge controllers, and I can plug in there to charge up if I want to for most things. And I have a generator if I need it. But most often we just make it without. And once we got used to it, it's quite freeing. It really is.
And where do you live? Like what area of the
I
country?
live in the Georgian Bay area of Ontario, Canada.
Okay.
So it's a Lake District.
Okay.
We're between Georgian Bay and Lake Huron.
And it's not cold without the electricity?
We have a nice wood stove.
Okay, well that makes sense. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
it's a big cook stove and it's a tiny house. So I mean, not tiny home, but it's quite small. So it's easy to heat. When it gets down to sometimes here it gets down to 20 below. If it's like that for a few days, it does start to get cool in the house and we just have to sit closer to the wood stove.
Yeah. We're closer to each other, right? And
Right, right,
okay.
that too.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. And so like was that like an accident? Like were you just feeling kind of angsty and unsettled inside and then you were just like, "Oh my gosh, this it just kind of happened as you guys built this place?"
Well, we did plan when we built it to have an entire solar system put in,
Hmm.
and we kind of ran out of money. So we got used to it being the way it is, and we got through it being the way it is. And I have to be totally transparent. In 5 years, we're planning on moving to actually Nova Scotia,
Hmm.
and it's a little four-season cottage that we bought, and it does have electricity.
Are you looking
So
forward to
that'll be
that, or
my
is part of you gonna be sad?
pardon.
Are you gonna look forward to that, to the change and actually having electricity, or do you think a part of you might be a little sad?
Well, there's a little bit of excitement when you live like this and you go somewhere where there is, because we don't have running water either. So when you have running water and electricity, it's like turn the lights on, turn the tap on. Wow, is this ever great? So it's going to be fun for a while. It's not so, and we're getting older.
Yeah.
So Mark's pretty tired working with the wood stove constantly. And he's my partner, he's an organic vegetable farmer.
Hmm.
So that's what we do on the property. And he works pretty hard at it all summer, spring, summer, fall. And he's getting a little bit tired of that too. So that'll
Mm.
be left behind at some point, and we'll move on to a new life.
Okay. Well, hopefully you'll still have your, Buddha nature, right? If you can call it that.
Absolutely.
That's all. And so, is there anything else that you think that will change when you move, or is it really just that you're moving to Nova Scotia and you'll have basic amenities that most of us take for granted?
Well, that in itself is a huge change. We'll be taking, we have quite a community here
Hmm.
because we have a little shop at the end of our driveway where we sell our vegetables. And we've been doing it for about 9 years. So the people in the area, my husband's lived here all his life, but the people in the area really know us
Hmm.
and they come to us. We grow a lot of garlic and we have a lot of customers that come only for their garlic every year.
Hmm.
And so here we have a solid enough community that we can find anything we need anytime we want to,
Hmm.
because we're there for people and they're all here for us. But it's going to be different when we move away. But I think with just the presence, Mark is on this whole journey through Peter Sage and Rory Kilmartin with me as well. So taking that with us, we'll just attract all those people that we need to in Nova Scotia, I'm sure. And
Yeah.
it's a really down home kind of friendly place anyway. So I think nothing much will change other than we'll be a little more relaxed, perhaps.
Okay. And when you say that he's on this journey with Peter Sage, is he also a trainer like you?
He hasn't become a trainer. He followed me through the first time and just sort of on my shoulder. So he didn't take it officially himself, but he followed me through the first time, and now he's taking it again on his own through the EMF program. He
Hmm.
doesn't have any ideas. He really wants to make a presence. He has a YouTube channel that he's just starting up because he's passionate about the soil
Mm.
and about growing things. So he has studied that a lot in his life, and he has a lot of things to share. So he's started up a YouTube channel called The Grateful Farmer, and that's really where he wants to put his efforts in going forward.
I like that. And
Hmm.
I'm curious, a lot of what Peter Sage talks about is, not allowing ourselves to be distracted, right? To be able to focus on something. And do you think that your current living situation, removed from so much hubbub and chaos of modern life, may actually aid that?
I think so. I think so. And people come here to find it
Hmm.
too. So the people that we have that regularly come around here, especially in the warm months in the summer, are all sort of looking for that kind of thing too. So I think so.
So when you move to Nova Scotia, do you see that as a graduation where you don't necessarily need it anymore? Or do you see maybe that you might be losing something very special to you?
There'll be a loss. There definitely will be a loss. I mean, we've had such magical things going on here. When we first moved in, we had interns, people from the area, young people that wanted to learn and help.
Hmm.
And there were a bunch of them that we were studying crystals and organite and all kinds of things like that. And they did a crystal grid around our farm and all kind of things like that. It's a very, very special place.
Yeah, that's
So
rad.
that will be missed.
Yeah, okay. And it seems like you've got a real close-knit community there, which,
Yeah,
when you're in the city or even the suburbs, people kind of stick to themselves.
right. I grew up in Montreal. That's where I was born. That's where I was till I was 18. And I've moved around quite a bit since then, but this is the longest I've ever been anywhere since then. And we have really quite an interesting life here,
Yeah,
truly.
it sounds like it. It sounds
We
like it.
seem to attract, like at this area, for some reason we've often wondered if there's vortexes. Well, there are vortexes around here, but it attracts the most incredible people. And of course there's the regular country folk who've lived there for generations, and they're not quite as open to the new stuff that's coming in. But the new people that are coming in, we get all kinds of people coming to our little store. We call it the pharmacy, Farmacy.
Nice.
And so people stop by just to see what it is. And it's often one of the first places people come when they move here. So we get people stopping in. They're all Reiki masters and healing people and artists and musicians, and it's so cool. It really is.
It's I like that you have the pharmacy and the play on words there, and it kind of
Mhm.
made me think of I heard a quote, and I'm going to misquote it, so it'll be a paraphrase. But this lady was talking about how she realized that as she would chew on garbage thoughts, there was a correlation to her then chewing on garbage food. And I know that if we feel bad, we can either decide to feel good, which sometimes is very difficult, or we can do things that are empowering, like lift our hands in the air, like, I win, and do something physiological that then changes the way that we feel. And so
Yeah.
if we find ourselves chewing on garbage thoughts, that then leads to chewing on garbage food, we might be able to find that if we chew on good food, that it then leads to chewing on good thoughts.
That's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah, I'll bet. How could it not?
Well, and
And
organic food as well. You don't have to worry about the glyphosate, the Roundup sprayed all over. And unfortunately, Roundup has found itself into every bit of groundwater. I know here in the
yeah,
U.S., probably in Canada as well. Uh,
yeah.
I want to say that in Canada, I heard, and I'm not sure how much truth there is to this, but some of the permafrost there, that there might even be, lakes of mercury, right? That just waiting to thaw. And that would be a little freaky.
I think I've heard those thoughts, but I don't know anything about it. But
Yeah.
yeah, really, there's a lot of stuff that you don't really want to think about because you have no control over it. So just live the best you can and make the best of it. Try and spread it around.
I like that. I like that. So just focus on what you can control and try to give
Hmm.
goodness to it.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's
Hmm.
great. And so, I'm curious, was your building this house where it was it part of a spiritual journey, or did you find kind of a little bit deeper spiritual space because of it? And how did that occur?
I think I found deeper spiritual space because of it, now that you're talking about it, because I really didn't start, well, I guess I started into my spiritual journey. I was married before my current partner, and a friend had given me a book called The Celestine Prophecy, which of course everybody knows. That was the first thing I ever had that got me into that way of thinking. And but interestingly enough, at that point, and that was probably 25 years ago, um, I had people showing up in my life that were very spiritual. And I worked with them, I was friends with them, I knew how they felt and what they did, and I didn't think it was wrong, but it wasn't my stuff.
Mm,
So it was around me, but I was going through a pretty tough time at that time. And it was always very supportive, but I wasn't able to start taking it in. And I didn't even recognize what it was at the time until a few years later when I ended up on my own and reflecting on, okay, what's going on in my life? I started to study about myself and realized that I'd been presented with these opportunities, but it wasn't my time yet. So now was my time to start moving. And then I met Mark, my partner, and he had for many years studied off and on things like NLP
mhm.
and all kinds of things. And he started trying to talk to me about it, and we would read books together. And gradually that started. That was 20 years ago. But to really think that it was inner work that I was doing for myself really started not long before I found Peter Sage, which was about 2 years ago. So I've really been working on it since then.
That's cool. Yeah, Peter certainly took me to a higher level.
Mm.
I found myself, Peter, as you know, talks about the idea of life being kind of like a chessboard or a checkered board where there's black and white squares. And all so often we're just so frightened, biting our fingernails, just wanting to make sure that we only step on white squares and we never dare step on a horrible, tragic black square. And I found that the black squares, as tragic as they, appeared, if I trusted myself and examined, hey, what can I learn from this? What can I do with this? How do I order, or create order from the chaos? It's led me out of it, and it's led me to a better place.
Right.
And it's been, phenomenal.
Hasn't it?
I started that with Jocko Willink, a former Navy SEAL, who really helped me figure out a little bit about discipline. How can I get some order from the chaos? And then Jordan
Okay.
Peterson. And Jordan
Yes, I'm
Peterson,
familiar with him.
yeah. So he really helped me with figuring out, hey, what is the greatest idea of goodness that I can conceive, and then go after it. Right, make yourself
Hmm.
worthy of it. And by doing that, Peter Sage, less than a year later, popped up in my life. Man, I never heard of. And then Ed Stracher later on, who taught me actually
Right.
how to be a healer, popped up in my life.
Yeah.
And what a strange world. What a strange world when you actually start looking into the idea and believing the idea that we do manifest our reality. Because I found that when I've tried to be too tightly controlled over things, and when my thoughts have been more kind of goopy putrefaction, well, then my external life was very goopy putrefaction as well. It's just gross. I felt down. I felt bad. I was, slogging through life. And now life seems like it is working more for me than it is to me. And what an incredible transformation in a pretty short amount of time. I mean, I started Peter in May of last year, and so not even a year since I started, let alone graduate.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and
Great.
I mean, I've been a philosophy nerd for a really long time, but I feel like he really helped me understand how to embody that in a way in which is how I live, and not just in my intellectual capacity.
We have a group of friends here that we've had for probably about the last 10 years, and they're all, a couple of them are very philosophically minded. A couple of them are world leaders. They pull things into different directions. Um, some are teachers, and we started something called, I guess it was about 7 or 8 years ago, called the Idea Club. And we would get together, I think it was once a week at the beginning, and then became once a month, and just talk about the possibilities of everything. Mostly, for the community, for the larger community, sometimes for the world. And we just sit around and have, to tell you the truth, we usually had a shot of scotch or so along the way. And we'd sit and discuss how we were going to fix the world, more or less. But we came up with some amazing thoughts, and it was so great to be part of that group. It dropped off after a while, but we're all still friends. And when we get together, which I did last night with most of them, it's pretty magical. And we've been blessed with that. And it was all people who had been, well, a lot of it started with people that had been part of our lives prior to that, but not really. So we
Mhm.
didn't really know them. And they just all started showing up. And it was obviously meant to happen the way it was happening.
Yeah, it's interesting when you quit looking at life as a series of coincidences that just randomly occur, but you look at it as, okay, well, I pulled this into my orbit for a reason, or I was
Right.
pulled into this orbit for a reason, and what do I have to learn from this, and how can I take this experience and make myself better and make the area around me better, and
And
whether
what
it's
do I have to offer?
yeah, well, and
Mm,
as far as making the world better, right? It's having the idea of thinking globally but acting locally and then
mm,
expanding is really a beautiful thing, because then the people around you who see you every day, right? Well, then they benefit. And the ones that are helping you, well, they also benefit. And then you bring in more people into your atmosphere who need that help and need that benefit. And you may find that, while you may lose something going to Nova Scotia, right? It may be where you're needed.
We're taking it there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you talk about thinking globally, acting locally, locally is really what's in here. It can be that local. It's your inner world, because that's really where it has to start, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, because, that's a folly that I had, is that I was very enamored with politics for a long time,
Uh,
starting in 2014, 15-ish, and got very, very active. But I was really trying to, here I am, I'm going to hop on my white steed and I'm going to save the world. Meaning, meanwhile, my life has fallen apart and I don't
right.
have my own house in order, but surely I can tell others how to get their house in order.
Hmm.
Well, mine is not. Right. And so a lot of hubris there. And so I kind of had to pull my head out of my fourth point of contact, if you're familiar with that phrase. Uh,
I I can imagine. I haven't heard it before, but
yeah,
I think
yeah,
I get it.
yeah, military term. But
Okay.
well, and I'm curious, when it comes to spirituality, right? What does that really mean to you?
To me, it means being able to breathe, to know that I'm not in control, to know that I just want to be part of a greater good, a greater consciousness. And it's not up to me to, it takes me out of by me. It puts me into through me. And that to me is so freeing. You
And
know,
for those who may not
the,
be as familiar with Peter Sage's stuff, since you are a trainer,
oh,
can
right,
you can
sorry.
you unpack that just a little bit about what by me and through me means?
So by me is when, if you want anything, you feel that it has to be you that makes it happen. So you need to work at it, you need to pay for it, you need to make it happen. It's totally up to you. And that's how we think, I guess, most people live their lives, to try and meet success, to try and get success and fulfillment in their life. And it's hard. It's a lot of work. It causes a lot of stress, and it's no fun at all. Um, so through me is when you're able to take a breath, sit back, and say, this is how I see things. This is how I envision I am and I'm going to be. This is, these are the things that I want to have around me. You don't sit back and hope someone else is going to do it. You work towards it, but you let it go, knowing that the universe is going to help you out with it. And if you see it as being done, it's going to happen. And I don't think I know anybody personally that lives all the time in either of those. But the ideal is to spend most of my time in through me, ultimately, if I can, and just visit by me from time to time when I need to accomplish something or get something happening.
I like that. That seems like a great explanation and definitely, jives with what I understand it to be. And
Hmm.
you're right. By me and forcing something to happen, swimming upstream constantly, seeing the stream and saying, "Hey, I don't like the way this is going, so I'm going to try and bend the river the way that I wanted to bend," is incredibly tiring. Is it possible? Sure. It can take a lot of manpower and it's most likely not going to work out the way that you want it to.
Right.
Through me sounds a lot of woo woo, right? But when we put ourselves and we align our thoughts, our energy, and our actions, right? Our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions towards a goal, like you said, when you kind of let it go and you let go of the importance, but you still keep it as a priority because you're still working towards it. well, then you've got that line in the water, right, to catch that
Hmm.
fish that you're looking for. And sometimes you
Hmm.
want to put multiple lines in the water, and you allow the one that bites to then bite and see where it goes, and see if this is what's right, to steer you in that right path. And it's certainly something I'm still learning. I certainly do
Yeah, me
not
too.
live in through me, though. Yeah, I certainly don't live in through me the whole time. I have, I'm currently building a business, so there's a lot of by me that just kind of pops up. It can be tiring, and but I find that when I'm taking a client through like a healing exercise, like
Mhm.
there's nothing more through me than that, because
I'll bet.
I can intuit it. I can reach in. I create some of the most powerful imagery for them to really just kind of let go of the shackles, of the burdens, of the pain, and find a life that, up until not long ago, I didn't realize even existed. And now
Right.
I'm able to now take them like a forester, right? Some sort of, it's who's like a forest guide, right? I'm now taking them on a path because I was able to walk it myself,
Yeah.
which is the opposite of what I was doing in politics. I was trying to take people somewhere I'd never been, and it
Yeah.
failed miserably.
Politics has got to be a, I don't know. I can't imagine ever being in politics.
I will see that Flasco with my Flasco.
And raise you one. Yeah. That's where spirituality is for me. Pardon me. It's uh, it's just being able to relax and appreciate everything. I think one of the words is surrender,
Mm,
not meaning I'm just giving up, which we kind of think of surrender as meaning,
mhm.
but saying that we're just going to let it go and the universe will carry on and make sure it happens.
For me, when I hear surrender now, because I have spent so much time following Jordan Peterson, I see it as surrendering to that higher authority,
Yeah.
surrendering to that greatest ideal of goodness of which I can conceive. And so that way, I don't keep second guessing, right? It's good to verify that, what we're doing actually, works, especially, in the way that we intend it to. But to surrender to something greater than us in order to realize something greater than us and enable to contribute, right,
Right.
to something greater than us, which, like you're doing right now with a community.
Hmm. Hmm. When I was a kid, my mom was religious and I went to Sunday school every Sunday. And for whatever reason, and I don't really know why, when I was 14 and I got confirmed into the church, I left and never went back. And
Hmm.
I didn't want to hear anything about it. The word God was not in my vocabulary at all, and I shied away from it whenever I heard it. And it wasn't a conscious thing. It was just that's who I was, and that's how I wanted to be. And it wasn't until the last couple of years that I've accepted that word back into my vocabulary as being one of the many words that you can use for whatever the higher power is.
Hmm.
But I do know it's there, and there is. I hate to use the word certainty, but there's certainty in that
Mm.
because you just know the universe has your back. To me,
Well,
that's certainty.
yeah, yeah. Well, I like that. And the certainty that the universe has your back can help you deal with the uncertainty in life, right? And whether it be a Buddha nature or just creating some fantastical version of like even a fantasy novel like that one, um, of what greatness is or what a god is. Uh, Giving ourselves to that can really give us that certainty, right? Dogmatism perhaps is bad, right? We don't want to be skeptical and closed-minded, because if we are, then we may actually block ourselves from finding something even greater. But thinking along those lines has allowed me to see the idea of the God self and realize that the God self right? The soul, the spirit, right? The eternal self. Right. That is the image that was or that is what's created in the image of God, right? Not this, not the flesh, but
Right.
that's which is the, ocean in a drop.
Right. Right.
And so
Yes.
you said that you're moving in 5 years. Is
That's the plan
how long have you had that plan?
for about a year.
Okay. Was there something that happened to kind of trigger that?
Um, no, we just kind of knew that this wasn't going to be how or where we wanted to live for the rest of our lives. And I'm 67.
Hmm.
So, and my partner's a couple of years younger than me. So we figured by the time we're hitting 70, it'll be time to take a break. And for whatever reason, I get called to places. I don't know why. This is the weirdest thing. I've been trying to get to Ireland since I was 15, and I don't know why. Well, I do kind of. My parents, I used to travel with my parents a little bit,
Hmm.
and there was a time when I was 14 or 15 that we had a stopover just on the runway in Shannon, Ireland. And I remember looking out the window and thinking, I could not believe the greenness of everything. And it just had this magic to it, looking out the window of an airplane. And I knew all my life that I wanted to go back there. So it's just lately that I've started to travel. Well, really, that's one of the things that I've been doing since I got involved with the Sage group is, oh my gosh, the traveling is just amazing.
Yeah.
And I have planned on going to Ireland now for the last 3 years. I kept trying to get somebody to go with me. And 3 years ago, I decided, no, I'm going to go on my own. So I had my ticket booked. I had the the hotel booked. I had everything booked that I needed, and COVID happened.
Oh no.
So it got canceled. I had to get everything refunded. The next year I tried to plan it again. Same thing. So I'm going in June. So
Okay.
anyway, Ireland's been calling me, and I don't know why. Nova Scotia has called me in the same way, and I really don't have any idea. I've never seen it before. I've always thought I'd love to live there. I grew up in Quebec and lived in Manitoba for a while and in Ontario, but I had never actually been to Nova Scotia. So we ended up, for whatever reason, Mark decided to go with my choice. And we started looking there. Things are a lot less expensive there too. And we bought this little cottage without seeing it, without seeing Nova Scotia, without seeing the area, without seeing anything.
Wow.
And there's a tenant in it. So we have someone in it. And we decided a couple of months later to take a trip out there and decide if this was indeed somewhere that we would want to live. And we loved it.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
So I've been to the Shannon Ireland airport twice.
Was
Uh,
it beautiful?
well, I don't really remember because
Okay.
the very first time, um, I was because I deployed to Kosovo. I was in the army.
Okay.
September 11th happened 8 days before,
Yikes.
so 8 days basically I was listening to, because and I couldn't help it. Every military unit basically has a motor pool where they take care of their vehicles, they take care of their generators. Since we were a medical unit, we had AC units and heater units so we can make sure and keep our patients temperate, and so that they wouldn't succumb to the elements. We forklifts, dollies, and all sorts of stuff. Well, so sitting there, basically nothing to do.
Yeah.
And what was like probably the worst thing that could have ever happened to me was what they did, which was
Oh,
play CNN on repeat for 10 hours straight. 10 hours straight on the radio. And you couldn't
oh my
escape it. It was
gosh.
always there. And so when Peter says constant negative news, it's like, dude, I've never experienced anything that created more trauma for me
It's like
than that.
torture.
It was complete torture. And
Oh
so
my
I had
gosh.
that in my brain for 8 days. Then we show up in Shannon, Ireland, and we're like, oh my God, now we're deploying to Kosovo. And what the hell do I know about Kosovo? Kosovo is a Muslim country. And the only thing that I know is what I'm told is that since what a singular Muslim, attacked us, that must mean that I must hate all Muslims. And so
Yeah.
then, that then was like me kind of grappling, well, that doesn't really make sense. Yet at the same time, I feel like I should feel that, especially since I'm wearing my, my green, black, and brown,
And you'd been listening to CNN for eight
and listening to
days.
CNN, right? And then the second time was coming back from Kosovo, and
Mm.
coming back from Kosovo was completely different. It was much more celebration. We were just drinking because we couldn't drink on the way there,
So you
but
don't remember it.
but coming back, oh man, we got hammered, and then not only hammered, but like the people who were there at the bar. We just started singing with them, and
Yeah.
they had a great time with these soldiers just singing. And then I made another bad mistake, a very, very
Oh,
bad mistake. I didn't realize how bad of a mistake this would be, but it was a bad one. I probably had about 7 drinks in me. And then our battalion commander was walking around. And at this time in 2002, Ambien was a big thing, and people just pass out Ambien like candy, which is a sleeping pill.
oh,
And
okay.
so he went around and gave an Ambien to every single soldier. I was like,
Ooh.
hell yeah, I'll take an Ambien. And I didn't throw up, but I probably should have. I was on the airplane, could barely move, and I was just
Uh,
spinning so fast. And I was like moving my head around, just trying to balance myself. And the stupid decisions that we make when we're 21, when we're just kind of trying to live in the moment,
oh
and
yeah.
yeah, in that type of moment. But yeah, I was a little tickled when you said Shannon, Ireland, because I certainly have some
You
good
didn't
memories
have
of
great
Shannon, Ireland.
experience.
Well, I mean the Shannon, Ireland itself wasn't bad, and I
Right.
could have easily said, "Hey, I don't need this pill. I'm feeling great." But it wasn't until I was actually in the air leaving Shannon, Ireland, that things got bad. So Shannon, Ireland
Uh,
still was nice, but yeah,
anyway, that's what's made me want to go back.
yeah,
And finally, I hope, going to do it in June this year. And my niece is going with me, so we're going to have a great time.
yeah, that's awesome. I've
Hmm.
always wanted to
And
visit
now through
Scotland
Peter
too.
Sage, of course, through our group, I have friends all over the world.
Yeah.
And I have a really good friend in Ireland. So I'll be visiting her and for part of the voyage. And mhm.
That's awesome. Well,
But that was me being drawn to places. That's what happens.
and then maybe that was why you got stopped, right? Maybe you had to make this friend, if you didn't have that
Yep.
friend before, and maybe that was the
Right.
reason why you're supposed
Right.
to go.
True.
Yeah.
True.
And yeah, I mean, we never really know. We never really know why things work out the way that they work out. But if we trust that they work out exactly how it's supposed to work out, like I'm a
Right.
huge Matrix nerd. So when Peter Sage started talking about the Matrix, like, whoa, this guy is for me for sure. But
Right.
there was a part where they went to meet the Merovingian, right? The guy who is all about ultimate power. And
Mm.
when they were leaving, right, the Oracle is actually who recommended, hey, go to the Merovingian, you'll find a way to find the key maker. Well, when they were leaving, going back down the elevator, Neo and Trinity were worried that it was a bust, and Morpheus said, no, what happened is exactly how it was supposed to happen.
Mm.
Well, how do you know? Well, we're still alive, right? Well, I'm still, I still feel it. I still feel that purpose building and bubbling inside of me. And it's an interesting way to live, and a great way to make sure that we're really exploring and I think seizing the magnificence that life has to offer.
Yeah. Yeah. And so up until the last couple of years, I didn't. I have always had a good life. I've always been the person that people look at and say, "Why are you so lucky?" And I had no idea I was lucky, but I've had good things happen. I've had bad things happen too, but and I hadn't even heard of or watched The Matrix until I started with Peter Sage, and I love that. I've always been a science fiction fan, and so that was a good step for me.
If you really want to get some credibility in the nerd realm, if you've got
I
if
don't know
you
about that.
um so I've got the box set of the Matrix,
Oh,
and
okay.
with the box set you can listen to the commentary, and there's commentary with two philosophers, one Ken Wilber and the other one's Cornell West. And Ken Wilber is all about spirituality, really harmonizing a lot of Eastern and
Okay.
Western
I've seen that
philosophy.
name. I have
Yeah,
seen that name.
yeah, and he teaches also transpersonal identity, non-duality, and
Right. That's maybe where I've seen it.
yeah, he's pretty phenomenal. One of the ladies who was in my EMF group, Nancy Wells, she's a heart math instructor, but she's a big
Hmm.
nerd of Ken Wilber as well. So we've kind of talked about him a little bit, and that was actually my first introduction to Ken Wilber. I'd never even heard of him, and what was fascinating about the commentary is that they decided to have two philosophers that love the movie talk about the philosophy that they're bringing up. And then they had three critics who just pooped all over the movie, who hated the movie. And they wanted to juxtapose what the critics said versus what the philosophers said. And the critics were a lot of times just down to, I like my action movies dumb, where I don't have to think.
That was
So
all they had.
yeah, that's effectively. I mean, they definitely use more words than that,
Right.
but that was near exactly a quote. And
Okay.
the Matrix is not a movie to go to if you just want your action movies to be dumb.
No, not at all. And I think I heard you say at one point you're a Star Wars fan.
So I do like Star
Yeah,
Wars, and
me
so
too.
having Peter use the Star Wars theme music, right, for his stuff was pretty awesome. And
Yep.
um, he has a thing that he talks about as far as when we put too much importance into something, like it needs to happen. Well, if it needs to happen, well, we're likely coming from a place of scarcity.
Yes.
And if we're magnifying that place of scarcity into the world, well, what happens then is that we create a disturbance in the force, right? We create an area of high pressure. Oh, it needs to happen in this area. Low pressure comes and just pulls it right down and
Right.
flattens it.
Yep. Good explanation. Yeah. So true.
Yeah, I've certainly seen that in my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I have too now that you mention it. It's very are you familiar with the Rory Kilmartin stuff? The archetype?
So I found his his different YouTube videos about the different archetypes before I ever met Peter. And then when I went through the module
Uh,
that was talking about that, I was like, wait a minute, is this going to be those? And I was like, holy crap, it is those. And so much of what Peter said are things that I found before him, and he really helped me put it into place and really have it make a lot of sense and help me integrate it into my life. So I'm not familiar with all of what Corey does, but
Rory.
or sorry, Rory does.
Rory.
My fault.
That's okay.
But I love what I've seen and what I've been introduced to.
I've taken my partner and I have both taken both of his courses in the last 6 months, I guess. And it's fascinating. The whole archetypal thing is just amazing. It's incredible what you can see in human behavior and what you can see in yourself with what you learned for it with it. And I was just thinking about archetypes and I'm well, my survival archetype is a fox, which in a mature form is a magician. And I just look back in my life and I have had an absolute fascination with magic since I was a little kid. My favorite books were always Alice in Wonderland and The Wizard of Oz, and then I moved on to The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and Tolkien, and my favorite person in the world was Merlin, and and it's been like that my whole life. So it was really cool that it came out that that happens to be what my archetype is. But that's a study that we've been doing for about 6 months now. And Peter Sage, whoops, where did I go? Um, don't know what happened.
Yeah, it was
Peter
strange.
Sage built a foundation, the courses that I've taken with him, that allows so many other things to build on. And I don't think it would have been the same to take the Roy Martin course without having the basis of EMF first. So I can't imagine what the future's bringing, but it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome. I when I went through Peter Sage's training on the different archetypes, I was able to then incorporate that into my healing sessions as well.
Ah,
And so
great.
for some clients who are really struggling with, you know, anxiety, deep anxiety, depression, PTSD, what I've done is have them come face to face with their archetypes, and then embrace them and incorporate them, and then integrate that shadow self. And you know, I'll do the same thing by creating the imagery of their past selves as well. And I
Right.
did that for myself. You know, a fun story you may have heard by now is yeah, I went to a sleep or not a sleep, a sensory deprivation tank.
No, I
And
haven't heard that.
okay, so I went to a sensory deprivation tank not long after meeting Ed Stracher. And so Ed hadn't taught me how to heal yet, but he taught me how to heal myself. So I'm going through the self-healing mastery stuff. And, you know, being also a science fiction fantasy nerd, you know, one of the things that I've watched is um, Stranger Things. And in Stranger Things, there's a young lady named 11 who would go into a sensory deprivation tank, and she'd basically open up a portal to a new dimension. So I started playing with these ideas in this deprivation tank. I opened a portal to a dimension, feeling just how much love and safety I felt going through Ed's training, and healing my own soul. I was like, hey, what can I do with this? So I started, this is when I really started branching out and playing with my own stuff. And what I did was I summoned the worst possible memory that I could remember, something that I've been dragging around, that like a plow just stuck in the dirt, and everywhere I go, it's just dragging lines.
Mhm.
And I summoned an image of that, of me at that age. And I summoned an image of what was going on that me at that age was watching. And then I projected myself as I am now, or I was then, right, several months ago, and I just went and held his hand, right? Because I never had a dad who actually, you know, was there for me. You know, my mom and dad divorced when I was 2. You know, my dad saw us maybe once a year, and
Mm.
I never really had a close relationship. He didn't teach me how to be a man. Didn't really show me love. So it was my first step into realizing that, well, I can now be my own dad. I can now show
Wow.
myself the love that I needed then.
Right.
And so I held his hand. I
Mhm.
allowed him to put all that fear and emotions into me, because I immediately just transformed it into the highest levels of love through my training, and I neutralized it. And then I turned around and looked at him and told him that he never had to be afraid ever again. And then I hugged him,
Wow.
started crying. I started racking sobs, and yeah, it was pretty awesome.
And this was when you were still in the tank.
Yeah, this was me in the tank, in the deprivation tank.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's amazing. That's
yeah,
that, well, inner child work, right?
yeah. Well, and the integration of the shadow, and
Hmm.
this was I don't know if this was during uh the archetype stuff, and maybe a little bit before. Hard to say exactly. I'm not sure exactly where that lined up, but it was powerful. And I did
Mm.
that a couple more times with memories, and now I just, those memories they've got no power over me anymore. And it's
So you really feel that it's changed you
yeah.
now.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
100.
that's
And
amazing.
well, and just like I mentioned before, being able to heal myself. Well, now just like a forest guide, I'm walking a path, I can now lead others there too. And that's why I've got some of the testimonials that I've got of people who have been dealing with PTSD, just talking about how much freedom they felt and how
Yeah.
powerfully they felt it, and how I led people to see their limiting beliefs and just allow them to, instead of getting rid of them or destroying them, embrace them and say, hey, I love you.
Hmm. We have a hard time saying that to ourselves.
Yep.
I just did a little thing on Mind Valley called a little course called Quantum Jumping.
Mm-hmm.
And it was sort of the same idea, but going forward instead of backwards. So
Mm.
I can't remember, Bert Goldman, I think is the guy's name. And so he has you go through a door that takes you into another space where you are in in the way that you see yourself as being. So it's perfect health, perfect fitness, whatever you want it to be. There's about 5 or 6 different things that he has. And so you see yourself, you watch yourself walking around, and then you walk into yourself and you get the rhythm, he calls it, of that being, and you come back with it.
Mm.
And I'm not very good at it yet. I'm going to do it again. But the concept of it is so intriguing. So it's very similar to what you're talking about.
Yeah, in the reverse direction,
Hmm.
right? Yeah,
Hmm.
that's awesome. That's really neat. And I mean, who knows where the rules break down, right? When it comes to, this sort of, modality or magic, right?
Right. I'm community manager on a couple of courses right now, and so right now I'm going with one course. I'm going through ruling reality, and I've already finished going through it on the last course. And every time you go through it, you just get different experiences.
Yeah.
And that's similar to what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going through EMF again with my group, EMF 17.
Oh, good,
And
good. That's a good plan.
yeah, and so we are now on module 6, and we'll be talking about that tomorrow.
Okay.
And yeah, going through concentration is like, oh my God, I totally forgot about these tools, because there's so many tools that you kind of get almost inundated with
Right.
that you need to go through again. And you need to
Yep.
be like, oh, that's right. Because some you'll figure out, hey, this works for me perfectly, and you just can incorporate it into your life. And others you kind of have to struggle with, but the you still have to keep moving forward through the modules. And since you have to
Yep.
keep moving forward, well, then you kind of let those go and you forget about them a little bit. And then when you go back through it again, it's like an old friend. It's like, oh, that's right.
And you're in a different place than you were the first time you went through it. So
Yep.
you're able to absorb things that you weren't able to the first time through. And you'll go through it. Like, I think now it's probably the fourth time I'm going through it. And it's amazing the things that I didn't bring with me from the times before. So it's there for the rest of our lives, which is great.
Yeah. Well, and having the deepest levels of psychology, neuroscience, metaphysics, and physics, frankly, as well, is incredible. And having this deep exploration of who is the great I am that lives within me,
Mm.
and what is it that I would like that great I am to be, and to say, and to do, and express itself. And I in Zen writing, Bodhidharma apparently is who brought Zen to China, right? This big bearded man from India. And they asked, what was the purpose of Bodhidharma bringing Zen to China? And the answer is effectively to be as an oak tree in a garden.
Mm.
He wasn't there to teach anybody anything. And in fact,
Just to be
when
there.
just to be there and just to show it, and by his magnificence of self, then showed others, oh, I can now find shelter in your boughs, right? In your shade, right? I can see the beauty. I can see that you bring and give new life, right? Life to the different critters that live in the branches. And yeah, so there's so much to unpack to that idea.
Be the example and the invitation,
Yeah.
which is basically what an oak tree would be.
Yeah, exactly. An
Yep.
invitation to, yeah, to come, tie a rope swing, sit down and have a picnic, right? Share some of the deepest, meaningful, loving conversations as you stare lovingly into the eyes of a partner, right? I mean,
Hmm.
there's so much that an oak tree can provide.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's been quite an adventure, and it's still happening. And I love what Ed Streeter does. I sort of want to do what you've done and go through the Healing Genius, but I haven't had the time or resources to do it at this point, but I would like to. It sounds fascinating.
Yeah, it certainly has been. I suspect at some point I'll probably be training other people. I'm not
Oh,
quite
okay.
there yet. I'm more just building up my client list and helping people heal.
Hmm.
And eventually, as my business builds out more, I'll probably create a branch of teaching people and others how to heal. I'm not exactly sure when that'll happen. I'm sure it'll kind of present itself of, when it's right for me. But I think that'll be a lot of fun too.
Does
Because
what you do work with animals? Do you work with
yes,
animals?
in fact, animals don't fight you the way that people do. So
Right, of course.
animals are easier.
Yeah, because they've been the biggest part of my life for the last probably 35 years. And I always have a lot of animals around me and people with animals around me. So
Mhm.
healing, and it seems that it should be the same for one as it is for the other, but you don't get the resistance from the animals.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and you don't get the placebo effect either because they don't have a clue what you're doing. So if it works, you know that it's because you did it, not
right.
because, yeah, yeah,
Well, and
cool.
effectively, for people who aren't familiar with Ed Stracher, the training that he
Hmm.
does is, he really just uh, energizes the life force, right? And a great way that I've been able to attach it to a pop culture reference is in 2014, there was a Transformers movie called Age of Extinction, and Optimus Prime, which is a big semi, was out of commission, and Mark Wahlberg found a missile in his chassis next to his engine, and so he pulls it out, and Optimus Prime comes to life. And Mark Wahlberg's like, "Hey man, you're lucky that you're alive, right? That this didn't hit your energy source." Optimus Prime said, "Hey, we call that a spark. It holds our memories and our life force." Well, Mark Wahlberg, without skipping a beat, says, "Oh, we call that a soul." And when we realize that atoms are 99.999999% empty space, well, there's something that houses that energy and that aligns that energy. And when we are living in a place of fear and scarcity, well, we do invite kind of the negative forces like mosquitoes to then start drawing off our life force. And as our life force gets drawn away, well, then our body and our mind start breaking down as a natural consequence. And in the reverse order, if your soul is at full strength, well, then your body and your mind heal as a natural consequence.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah, that totally makes sense. So
And it's fun.
you work on it from a soul level.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and like I was talking to and I know Ed doesn't hold any punches. Like he's a really
No,
great,
I
no,
listened to
yeah.
his talk.
Well, and he gives Reiki practitioners a hard time because in his experience, Reiki just makes you feel a little bit better, but it doesn't do anything to address the root problem, which is a condition with the soul. The soul is being drained.
Hmm.
Um, and I was talking to a lady who practices Reiki, and she told me that she has people be by a window, and so that way when she cleans them of that negative energy, they can send it out the window so it doesn't stay. And I was, so she saw the look on my face, and she asked me what I do. I said, "Oh, I just transform into the deepest levels of love for their greatest benefit." And she's like, "Oh, I've never heard that before." And it's like, "I'm sure you haven't, right?" Because Ed, I mean, I don't know for certain, but could arguably be the most powerful, healer,
So
alive
say
today.
that again. You just
I transform into the highest levels of love for their deepest and greatest benefit. Right. So, you don't need to say, piss off, everything that's, but you
right.
disconnect from it. You disconnect from it. And when you disconnect from it, it goes where it goes. And everything that was drained, like a mosquito, if a mosquito drains your blood, in this case, a mosquito draining your soul power, well, just like your fingerprint, right? Your soul has its own unique signature, and you have sovereign authority over that. And so when you reclaim your power, right, after you disconnect from everything that's draining you and you reclaim your power, well, then
Right.
you just transform that into the deepest levels of love, highest levels of love. And you'll find that, yeah, there's none of this funny stuff like let's push it out a window to make it go away. Well, it's gone, right? And there's ways to make sure that it's gone now and forever. And so there's yeah, it's a whole lot of fun, whole lot of fun.
Yeah, because how long have you been doing it for?
I'm actually in my first year.
Okay.
Yeah, which is the thing that blew my mind the most is that the first day Ed had us healing people. Yeah, the first day. So the first day was 5 hours long, but about an hour and a half into it. And so the first hour, maybe the first 20 minutes, he was just kind of talking. And then we went through a deep meditation. He showed us how to do some things and said, okay, who wants to try this? I was like, well, I do. I'm kind of nervous, but hell yeah, I want to. And the lady who was my client, right, which was somebody that he brought in to be able to help us prove to ourselves that we can actually do this.
Okay.
She didn't even turn on her camera. So that was super awkward for me. So I didn't know she was being compliant. I just had to trust that she was.
Right.
She, normally people sit down. She was laying down and told me that she was laying down. And so already completely out of the norm for what I would expect. And she came to me, came to Ed, and Ed partnered with me because she had libido issues and she wanted help with her libido. And in about a 7-minute session, right, very, very brief session, it's somewhat similar to what you and I went through.
Mm-hmm.
She said that she literally felt something flicking her ovaries, like the energy was just trying to just like a clog in the pipes that was just getting to moving again. It was like,
Wow.
yeah, and what a great way to
And
prove
this
to
was
us
your
that
first class.
this is the first day of doing it. Now, that said, before you do the first day, you're expected to go through the self-healing stuff to kind of learn
Ah,
how to
okay.
do things. So, because he's going to build upon that, right? You've already built your foundation by then. So that way you can now build a house because you already know what you're doing. But
Mm.
still, I never tried to heal anybody. I only done the meditation for myself. And so the first day doing that, yeah, I was already a believer before then, but yeah,
Right.
damn right, I was a believer after that.
Wow.
I know.
Very good.
Yeah, very awesome. Well, Joyce, this has been incredible. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah,
Is there
me
any
too.
any last words that last words of wisdom you'd like to give people?
Just never forget all the possibilities. And it's the possibilities that are open to you all depend on the state of mind that you're in when you open the door.
Mm, mm. So it makes me
That
think of
means so much to me.
Plato's allegory, right? And which is, you can't quite tell from the book right there, but that's Plato's great dialogues. And the allegory of the cave, which is that what we see are just shadow representations of what's going on.
Mm.
And the matrix has us. If I'm born in the US, well, I'm going to think the US is better than another country. If somebody's born in that country, they're going to think that things are better than over here. And so wherever our frame of mind is, to your point, or wherever our awareness is at, well, it's definitely going to guide us on our intuition and our sense of awareness of what that has for us. And if we surrender to the idea that I'm supposed to be there, we'll find that things will happen the way that they're supposed to, much more likely than not.
Mhm. Just check your state of mind.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Well, Joyce, you're awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm looking forward to hearing about your journeys in Nova Scotia and see why you feel that you're called there.
Yeah, we're going to go there again this spring and visit. So
That's awesome.
lots of lakes and trees and not a lot of people.
Lakes and trees. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nature is a beautiful thing.
Yes.
Beautiful thing.
Yes.
Well, good luck
Thank
to
you.
you and your husband. Hey, my pleasure. Has been my distinct, pleasure to have you on here. And to everyone listening, to you as well, Joyce, may love and truth always guide your path.
Yes, please. Love you.
I love you too. Hey, you have a
Bye
wonderful
bye.
time. Bye.